The first Monday Night Football game on Week 7 will be the Baltimore Ravens versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Both of these teams are coming off great victories as the Ravens beat Jaden Daniels and the Washington Commanders, while the Baker Mayfield-led Tampa Bay Buccaneers dominated the New Orleans Saints. This is going to be a fun Monday Night Football matchup here. My name is Tyler, here with my brother Ryan. We're going to break down this game for you here. The matchup within the game that you need to look out for the Ravens and Bucs. At the very end of the video, provide our predictions on who we think is going to win and why. But before we get into that, we do have a goal of getting to 100 new subscribers for our Week 7 prediction video series. We've been able to hit that goal over the past couple of weeks thanks to all of our new members to the channel. So if this is your first time here, if you have not already, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, leave a like and a comment. Let us know who you think is going to win and why. And so, Ryan, both the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Baltimore Ravens had solid victories here in Week 6. Lamar Jackson really kind of dominated the game here for the Baltimore Ravens against the Washington Commanders here. As a team, they had 308 passing yards. They had 176 rushing yards. A lot of that thanks to Lamar and Derrick Henry. Now, on the flip side, too, as well, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, you probably would want to forget about the second quarter a little bit of their game, as that's where all 27 points for the New Orleans Saints were scored. It's actually kind of wild to say that, because I think the Bucs also scored like 7 or 10 points in that quarter anyway. So, but anyways, outside of that, though, still a very dominant performance, though, going up against the team here. The Bucs we'll get to in a second here, but the Ravens, with the expectations kind of coming into the season, being the AFC regular season champs here, barely losing to the Chiefs in the AFC Championship game. What are your kind of overall thoughts on the Ravens here? Do you think that they're still on that trajectory to maybe repeat and maybe even go further into the playoffs? Or do you still think that there are some areas of concerns for this Ravens team?
Yeah, I mean, I think they're on that trajectory to be a late playoff contender. I still have some concerns about this defense. This defense hasn't been nearly as good as it was last year. And off the top of my head, I'm trying to think of some of the losses that they had. I know Patrick Queen is no longer there, but they still have Roquan Smith. They don't really seem to be super banged up on the defensive side of the ball. So I'm just kind of curious as to why they're not performing as well. But this defense has struggled so far this year. Maybe they've just had a tougher schedule so far, but all in all, I think this is a really good team. You look, they really should have beat the Raiders in Week 2 and be 5-1 right now, but they let them back into that game, and that has been a little bit of a theme lately. And granted, like they almost let the Cowboys back into their Week 3 matchup, but they closed out well against Buffalo. They closed out well against Cincinnati. Well, actually, they came back and stole the win against Cincinnati, but they closed out well today against the Washington Commanders. And like this team, they're playing full 60 minutes of football. This offense is, I believe, leading the league in yards, rushing yards for sure. I believe, I think Lamar and Derrick Henry are both in the top 10 in rushing yards.
Probably. I wouldn't doubt that for a second.
Yeah.
Not knowing off the top of my head, but that's got to be.
And so that is just a really potent rushing attack that they have. And then Lamar is still being really efficient in the passing game. He's completing just about 2/3 of his passes and I don't have the updated stats right now, but 1,200 yards, 9 touchdowns, so just 1 interception, and I believe that was through Week 5. And so it's just a really efficient offense there. This defense has been kind of holding them back there. And Tampa Bay, I don't want to say the opposite, because today, they got loose with the football. And maybe that's a little bit of an outlier, but they let your Falcons hang around in that game a couple weeks ago, and they had a tough loss to the Broncos as well. And so they are a really good team. They have a lot of talent. They do just make mistakes that I think cost them some football games.
Well, to that point, just real quick, to be fair to the Bucs, even with the Falcons and kind of coming into this year, into this week, they're banged up in the secondary.
They are,
and so that's going to cause that's definitely going to cause a lot when you're going kind of deep onto the bench to put starters out of the secondary as well, especially then too when you come to a team who I think they've improved on the defensive line in the front seven, but it's not what it was when they won the Super Bowl, and so. When you don't have that super effective front seven and you have a really weak secondary due to injuries, that's going to have a big impact overall. And so, but kind of one of the things though, then too, speaking of secondaries, kind of going back to the Ravens, you were talking about who left. This is just from our most recent when we did our offseason recaps. Geno Stone left, their safety. Ronald Darby left, and Rocky Sin also left. Just an immediate kind of just look at who did end up leaving the team. And so if not, maybe some more other guys. And so they did draft Nate Wiggins, though, who I think has been playing well, still having rookie moments, but still playing well. And I think he's going to be a good guy for that team. But to be fair, though, I think some of the stats here as well for the Ravens, they are 31st in overall passing yards allowed. They are first in rushing yards allowed. So, like, teams can't run against them. And they have been winning in a vast majority of those games as well. And they have blown a couple of games also, too. Las Vegas Raiders, for example. Dallas Cowboys put up a bunch of points on them. And they were able to come out victorious. But a lot of that was second half garbage time yards where they were just able
It was really on the fourth quarter.
Pretty much, yeah. So that's where maybe some of these stats are skewed a little bit. And, like, if we look at today as well, it's they did a great job. They held Jaden Daniels and this explosive offense that has been taken off over the past couple of weeks, really the past month. Just 253 passing yards and just 52 rushing yards, which is huge. For a Washington team that was Brian Robinson, Austin Eckler, the Mick Nichols guy, and then also Jaden Daniels, who they'd run for 215 or more yards in 3 of their last 4 games before today. So, like, they were able to run whenever they wanted to, and Baltimore shut them down. And so that's huge. That's
I will say, if there was one team in the league that would be prepared for the style of rushing that Jaden Daniels have, I feel like the Ravens defense, who sees it every single day in practice, I think it has a good feel of how to defend that.
Absolutely, yeah. No, I think that's fair. They're like, what do you want to practice today? Like, let's try and tackle Lamar, and it's going to be the same thing. And so, but I also think too, and there's nothing that's really coming to my mind, but I think they've been primarily healthy overall. And so, absolutely correct me if I'm wrong. I could easily be 100%, but I think that's huge for a team's overall long-term success because even as today, one of the things I was going to bring up is just Tampa Bay. Jamel Dean, he went down with a hamstring injury today, and so need to watch his overall status. But once again, that might just be another guy that could be hurt for Tampa Bay going into this team because one of the things that you mentioned earlier has been Lamar's passing game, and he seems to be getting more efficient. Like, he was definitely, I think we all agree, he was pretty shaky early on in the season, but he's gotten more efficient overall. And today, throwing for over 300 yards, and then with all the rushing capabilities that he has, he does seem to be getting kind of back into that late season form that we saw last year. And that's going to be the thing, I think, for Tampa is how do they slow down Lamar's passing game? How do we get him inefficient? Because we know what they're going to be able to do running the ball with Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson. Tampa Bay, what are they ranked at? They are 11th in rushing yards allowed, so they're going to have to play every bit of 11th rushing yards that they can be. They are 28th in passing yards allowed. Some of that is absolutely skewed thanks to the Falcons game. I mean, when you give up 500 plus yards, or I think they gave up 477 team yards because they had a couple sacks in there. That's going to be a big X factor. But they do need. They have given up some yards in previous games. They've given up 324 to who was that? To Detroit, which they're able to pull that game out. They gave up 222 yards to the Saints today, and so Lamar, I think with how well they're able to run the ball, they need to find a way to somehow make him more inefficient. Because the Ravens, they're going to get theirs when they're running the ball. And so it's going to be how can they also limit those explosive plays to Zay Flowers, to Nelson Aguilar, to Mark Andrews, who caught a touchdown today, Isaiah Likely, like these guys that just fit really well within this Baltimore Ravens offensive type system.
Yeah, and the thing that to me is so tricky with the Ravens passing offense and slowing that down is you have to respect the run so much with just Lamar's running ability, and then now they have Derrick Henry in the backfield. Like, that is just so hard to defend in and of itself. But then it's not even like they have the most explosive pass catchers. Like Zay Flowers, very explosive player. Outside of him, Rashad Bateman is kind of your stereotypical like X receiver. And then you have Mark Andrews, and Isaiah Likely is explosive for a tight end, but all in all, he's just kind of a move tight end. Like he's not this uber elite athlete that's going to outrun people at the second level. He's just like really athletic for his size. And so to me, they just create this offense where they have a few really big targets and then like this really shifty wide receiver, and then just this extremely powerful downhill running game that just puts defenses in a bind of you can't really play nickel because then they'll just run it all over you. If you do put a third linebacker on the field, then that like they're fine to let Lamar run around until one of these guys can find a zone to sit in. And so that's where this offense just becomes really potent. And then on the flip side, we talked a lot about the Ravens. I think this Buccaneers offense is really hard to defend simply just because of the talent. Cade Otton had a good game today. You have Mike Evans, the future Hall of Famer, like great receiver. Chris Godwin's really good. And like this running game has been decent with Rashad White. This offensive line is much improved over last year. They do it in a more traditional offensive production sense, but this is just a really hard offense to defend because they have really good playmakers.
Yeah. Well, and one of the things too, White didn't end up playing today, but then still Bucky Irving has been a great pick as well, and he's been able to contribute. He adds another kind of pass catching aspect out of that backfield. And so I will say, kind of going to the predictions here, is I know we're talking about the weapons for the Buccaneers. I think that's going to be a great matchup to watch, Nate Wiggins versus Mike Evans or Chris Godwin, and just how this Ravens secondary tries to contain like the passing capabilities from Tampa Bay. That being said, though, I just don't think it's going to be enough overall. Tampa Bay they had an amazing rushing performance today, 277 yards, at 160 last week against Atlanta, and then 111 the week before that against Philly in their home win. And so 3 performances for them over 100 yards rushing, which last year was a tough feat to do. This year, though, especially then today, they almost hit 100 yards a couple times in today's game alone. But so they're making the right steps forward. I do think they're going to have a much tougher time running, though, against this Baltimore Ravens rushing defense. And then that's going to rely a little more heavier on the passing game. While on the flip side, I think just the Ravens are just going to be a little bit of a better team here and having that extra day to prepare as well. I'm going to go with the Ravens here in a close Monday Night Football matchup here. I'm going to say 28-24.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Ravens as well. I understand that the Bucs have a good run defense, and I could see this run defense potentially slowing down this rushing attack from the Baltimore Ravens. But I still feel like in the fourth quarter, after trying to tackle Derrick Henry for 2.5 hours of just being like just running into a 260-pound like hammer over and over again, it's exhausting for the best rushing defenses like out there. And you couple that with Lamar, he's probably going to go 19 for 25 for 220 yards and a couple touchdowns. He's going to run for another 60 or 80 yards. Like it's just going to be this is a really frustrating offense to try and defend. And I think the Bucs are going to make enough mistakes that the Ravens are going to be able to come away with this one. I'm gonna say 31-21 will be the final score here. So we are both taking the Ravens in this Monday Night Football matchup. Let's go ahead and wrap this video up here. If you guys have not already, please go ahead and like and subscribe. It is the best way to help out the channel. While you're down there, go ahead and leave a comment. Who you think will come out ahead? Will it be the Baltimore Ravens? Will it be the Tampa Bay Buccaneers? And on that, we'll see you guys next time.